when I was growing up, I always was in the rodeo world. I was in competition, cowboy mounted shooting, actually.
Really?
So I'd traveled throughout the country with that, and I've always been competing at a high level, everywhere I went, whether it was rodeo, football, and now it's in NASCAR. So I'm blessed to keep that rolling,
And I wouldn't be the Jackman that I am if I didn't have him. So with that,
He's
Jacob
the
Prawl.
man. Look at that, Jacob Prawl.
Yeah.
Praise from your man.
Yeah, Nick would be nothing without me.
Welcome into Backstretch Banter with RFK Racing on Sirius XM NASCAR Channel 90. I'm Chris Childers. We got a fun day today. We are coming off of Kansas, and it is Pit Crew Day here on Backstretch Banter. We got some members of the number 17 Pit Crew that work alongside Chris Buescher. We also, a little bit later on in the program, will have a member of the 6 and the 60 as well. We are heading to the All-Star race this weekend. Some pretty cool schemes on the side of the cars. We got the Boston Common Golf, which is the fun virtual golf deal going on that you can watch on ESPN on the 60, Solomon Plumbing on the 6, and we have Kroger on the 17. But let's check in with a couple of guys that are going to be working on that 17 Ford Mustang this weekend that will be sporting Band-Aid, Tylenol, and Neutrogena products. We've got Jacob Prawl, a front tire changer for the 17, Nick Patterson, Jackman for the 17, both reoccurring guests. I told them they were legends off the air. Now that they're old veterans on the show. But gentlemen, it is great to have you, Nick and Jacob. A pleasure. Nick, I could see he's just, the personality is bursting. Nick, how are you, sir? Good morning to you.
Doing great.
Or afternoon, I guess it is now.
Yep, afternoon. It's great to be here. Thank you for having us.
It's good to have you, sir. I always look at my guy over here, Jacob, and I'm like, this guy is a brown bear, and he is a CFL Rough Rider alumnus who found his way to NASCAR. Do you find yourself to be maybe the most unique path to your job, Jacob, of anybody that's in NASCAR?
I mean, yeah, you said it. It's a very unique path, but I think that's the awesome part about being on a pit crew is that there is not one direct path. Every person on our team, especially the 17, has a completely different path. From Jackman, rear changer, front changer, carrier, even Gasman, like each one of us is completely different. We're at completely different stages of our lives, and that's a beautiful thing about this pit stop is that we can come together and collectively be on the same team.
It is cool, and let's get into that as long as we're starting there, because it's a fascinating job that you guys both have. You're a member of a team. You are both athletes. You are both critical to helping the 17 have success every weekend. But like you said, Jacob, everybody's coming from a different background. So let's get into that a little bit, because I know we've had you on in the past, but together it's kind of neat to have teammates that can kind of feed off each other here. So Nick, let's start with you. And I know we've talked about it in the past, but when you walked into NASCAR, it's not exactly a job that I think most kids are thinking about. Like, you might dream of being a race car driver. I don't know how many people are like, man, I want to be out in the pit crew. Maybe they should be. But it's an interesting profession to walk into. How did you get here?
Oh, man. My journey, like Jacob said, was very different than his. And
Then the Ivy League and the
yeah,
CFL?
I was not an Ivy League guy. I bounced around. I think I toured 4 different colleges or universities over my collegiate career and didn't end up staying super long at any of them, but ended up graduating in the end, fortunately. But I think I spent enough time doing that to probably have gotten like a master's or something, but I got a bachelor's and a minor. So, but no, it was kind of a cool thing that happened where the athletic trainer at Winston-Salem State was very intimately involved with NASCAR at the time, and he was doing a lot of stuff with MRO, which is the motor racing outreach, and he was doing a lot of the athletic training stuff at that time. So he had a lot of contact with drivers and owners that were coming to see him for little, tweaks, pains, ailments. And so at the time, our infield care center was serviced by Ian Majinski. And so he was my athletic head trainer at Winston-Salem State. And so because he was involved with that, he took a call from Roush Fenway at the time and was asked, hey, you got any football players that meet, this height, weight, character, all that, blah, blah, blah. And because I was good friends with him, he threw my name in it. And like you said, I didn't know anything about NASCAR. I'd never watched it. I didn't know anything about the pit crew or what was involved with being part of a pit crew. I knew absolutely nothing. I was a zero in the NASCAR world. And I was fortunate enough that Scott Bowen and Cameron Cobb, who was the Jackman coach here at the time, he's one of the pit coaches, but he was my Jackman coach. And he agreed to train me for an hour a week. And so I came for 3 months and did that hour a week. And then at the end of that, I was headed to the military. And I had told them, hey, it's time for me to go sign papers and head out and ship out. And they said, well, what can we do to get you to stay? And I said, well, if you can pay me what I'm going to get paid in the military and give me full benefits, then I'll be able to sustain life. So I'll give it a shot and stay. I'm still young. I can do the military later. And so they slid the paper across the desk a little too quick. So I knew that I'd kind of messed up on that negotiation, but they were willing to do that. And so Cameron poured everything he had into me. And I'm very grateful eternally for that, because he taught me a lot. And gave me a really strong foundation as a Jackman. So I owe a lot to Cameron and Scott for giving me that chance and the opportunity.
That's a pretty cool story and a unique opportunity you took advantage of, which I think is awesome. And Jacob's got a whole different story that we'll get into. But Nick,
smart guy here.
It's wild, really. I mean, I think that's what's so cool. But overall, Nick, how many guys do you think that are in the pit crew grew up NASCAR fans, and how many guys just kind of found this by happenstance?
I would imagine that so when I got into the sport, there were a lot of mechanics that were operating as pit crew athletes that had just kind of found a niche that they were good at changing tires, or they were good at jacking, and they had a body type that suited the position, and they were good enough to be on a crew. And it wasn't one of those things where they were recruiting athletes super heavily. Yeah, there were some, but not a lot. And so I would say that of the people that are still left on pit road who are in that category of growing up and being a mechanic and doing the wrenching on the car, that those guys probably grew up fans. But majority now, the athletes that are recruited are probably not fans. They're just trying to extend their athletic career beyond college or beyond the professional level, and this is a way to do that.
Well, Jacob was a Canadian League football player who found his way to the NASCAR world. He's got a degree from Brown, which is an Ivy League school, for those that aren't familiar, which is not easy to get into. You are now in this world in NASCAR, and it's an interesting journey that you got. I got to believe it all comes down to the common denominator, even though your journeys are all different, of it's a chance to stay in competitive athletics, and you guys want to stay pro athletes. But okay, time for you to tell your story of the Ivy League to RFK.
Before he gets started, I just have to say that he's a freak of nature athlete, and he's a hell of a front changer, and I got a lot of respect for his work ethic and for the skill that he carries, and I wouldn't be the Jackman that I am if I didn't have him. So with that, Jacob Paul.
Man. Hey, that Jacob Paul. Praise from your man.
Yeah, Nick would be nothing without me. I obviously say the same thing about Nick. We're each other's hype men. We continue to be throughout our careers. So very appreciative to have him as well. But yeah, I mean, the path is kind of what you explained. I went to a 4-year college at Brown, played football. Didn't really have a singular path, but the great thing about Brown is that it opened up a bunch of doors. I could get into finance. I could get into like pretty much anything possible from Brown. You could go play in the NFL. You could go do something completely different, like I did, being on a pit crew. But it does hold that namesake that has, I think, driven me to get opportunities that I rather wouldn't have had I not gone there. So I'm very appreciative of everything that Brown allowed me to do up until now, especially. And then, yeah, the Canadian football thing was definitely a fun cherry on top to add to my career. I just got a memory from 3 years ago. I was in training camp there, so I still can't believe that was only 3 years ago.
Wow.
and especially because I feel like I've been doing the pit stop thing for a while now, even though it's only been less than 3 years. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of a very straightforward path, but going through it since graduating in 2020, now 5 years later, I would have never thought that this would have been an opportunity to have, and then also for it to like somewhat make sense. Like if you were to tell me this path 5 years ago and be like, yeah, this is what's going to happen, I'm like, what are you talking about? That's not even possible. Yeah. And somehow it's become part of my life. So, yeah.
It's weird how it works. It's weird how life can throw you curveballs, and something that ends up being your career path, it wasn't even on your radar, let alone you're thinking that it's going to be your life, but here you are. So Nick went to a school that was probably a lot like mine, that you had kind of a normal kid going there. You went to a school where, like, you know, CEOs and fancy pants people. So I'm curious what it was like for you on that campus, because obviously you were not like dreaming of being the president of the United States, maybe like some of your alumnuses are. You're an athlete. You wanted to be athletic and make a career out of it, and God bless you for it, like the rest of us dream of. But Brown's not exactly like that. So what were your pals like when you were sitting around talking about life and what you were going to do after college? What was that like for you, that culture?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think this may break it down. So there was 5 receivers that got recruited the same grade as me, and I'll explain the 4 others. One is a lawyer, one is a doctor, one is a consultant, and the other is a salesman. So
yeah.
And each one of us went completely different ways, even though we were doing the same thing at Brown. So that in itself explains the opportunities that you can have post-graduation. That doesn't mean, I don't know. I get always weird whenever people say, like, you know, Brown is just better than you, or Brown is like we are better because we're Brown or whatever. It's like, I don't know if that necessarily holds true. It's not like those guys there were any more special than the guys I'm around with today. It's just they had a different path when they were 17 years old, when they were getting recruited out of high school. So I am kind of passionate of saying that as well. But yeah, I mean, I definitely felt like I was sticking out like a sore thumb when I got to Brown. I was like, I don't know if I belong here. You know, and then you start looking around and you're like going to career summits and you're like, why is everyone working in New York and Boston now? I was like, I don't want to do that. And so then that kind of ostracized me even more to like who my you know, coworkers or teammates at the time were. So yeah, even though it's a crazy story, I'm not surprised that I did not end up in that scenario and I found my way down to North Carolina.
I love that story. I really do. I think it's fantastic. Talking to a couple of pit crew members for the number 17 for the Ford Mustang, driven by Mr. Chris Buescher, Jacob Prohl, and Nick Patterson. One, a front tire changer. The other is a jackman. Nick just kind of looks like a guy that would be a jackman. He's got that you don't want to mess with him kind of look. You know what I mean? Like if you saw him on the street, he could probably do some things to you that would not be pleasant. And I got to believe you almost have to have that mentality to be somebody that stands in front of a race car. But honestly, the first time you did it, were you scared to death, or was it, I mean, or are you just the kind of guy that, all right, come on, race car, I'll lift you up. You're gonna stop. Like, what was it like for you?
Yeah.
And what is it like now? Seriously.
Oh yeah, there's a difference for sure. And I'll say that the first time that I did it was actually not even a NASCAR race. It was a Hickory Speedway late model race.
Okay.
And so my expectation going into that, you know, because I had watched all these YouTube videos at this time, and so like I've got an expectation of what I'm walking into at Hickory, not knowing anything about racing at all. So I had no prior knowledge of Hickory Speedway. I was just sent to go to this race with some guys that had been practicing at Roush to go to this race for this late model. And at the time we were obviously 5-lugging. And so my expectation going into that Hickory race was we were going to go out there, we were going to lay some stops down, you know, we're going to compete. And then the difference in the competitiveness from that race to NASCAR was a huge difference. I mean, there's a huge fall off. Like, we had guys that were just dragging the jack around the back of the car to go and get to the left side. So we were by far the best pit crew there, but it allowed me to get my feet wet, kind of understand the flow of things. And there wasn't even like a legit pit road with a wall. It was just like a piece of asphalt in the infield that they drove onto. And, but then my first NASCAR race was an ARCA Series race in Daytona in 2017. And then I guess at the time that wasn't actually a NASCAR series, but the truck series was the day after, and I jumped early on my first stop. So that was a great experience. I actually still have the picture that my jack coach screenshotted of me on the ground and the box red, meaning that I had jumped too early, and the splitter of the car was like that close from being on the line. So
oh gosh.
So yeah, so we go to the back on the first stop. Didn't really matter. It's Daytona, but that was my first experience, and then after that everything's been pretty good. But I was just so excited, didn't want to mess anything up, and I just went a little early.
Well, you've learned, and I know the 17's been kicking butt watching you guys work in harmony. So certainly we all got to start somewhere. Let's take a break. We'll come back with these two, and I want to ask Jacob. The guy played football at a high level, and I'm curious if there's anything at all in football that you can relate to an 8-second pit stop and that kind of intensity and focus. And maybe there is or isn't, but we'll talk about it when we come back right here on Backstretch Banter. We're back here on Backstretch Banter, Sirius XM NASCAR Channel 90. Chris Childers. We are having a pit crew special on the show today, and we have been visiting with a few members, or a couple of members, I should say, of the number 17 Ford Mustang crew. We've got the Jackman and the front tire changer. Jacob Prawl is the tire man, and Nick Patterson is the man that is standing there like a brave SOB and lifting that thing up every time it goes to pit road. I had teased this, and I'm really curious, Jacob, because we've mentioned your CFL career. We mentioned the fact that you played in Ivy League football, and you went on and had a chance to play pro football in Canada. So you understand pressure, you understand teamwork, you understand execution. But a football game is 60 minutes, and offensively you're going to be out there, half the time and doing your thing. When you're part of a pit crew, you're not Chris Buescher. You're not driving the entire time. Your time to shine is, every once in a while, and you got to be on it. You got to be mentally focused, and you got to be on it, or things can get messed up. With that said, as an athlete, is there anything you can take from football that applies to being a tire changer, or is it a completely different world?
It's like I've said before, it's we're the kickers. We're called upon when they need us, and it's our job to kick it through the goalposts every single time, no matter the distance. So, as many similarities there are to me being a receiver playing football, you're right. Like, we are not Chris Buescher. We're not under the pressure and making the moves the whole race. We are the guys sitting on the sidelines yelling, "Put me in, coach," asking for that next opportunity. And as you were saying that, it's like, what can you do mentally throughout the race to keep the pressure going? Because there's so many times where it's a long green flag race, or even like towards the end of the race, like I was thinking at Darlington, where in the final stage, we were good on fuel, and if the race went green, we didn't need to do another pit stop. But what do you do mentally? Because at Darlington that if there's a caution that comes out, you're going to need to pit again, all 4 tires. So it's kind of going around to our teammates. I remember going to each one of them being like, yo, caution goes out, like, let's lock in. Because even though there's 30 laps to go and you're thinking, oh, okay, well, we could be done, or we could need to do one of our most important pit stops of the whole year, it really messes with you mentally, because it's like, how do you stay locked in for that? Because at the moment, you're not doing anything. So, I mean, that's exactly what happened. Late caution came out in Darlington. We ripped off one of the fastest stops of the entire day, and even though it was one of the fastest stops of the whole day, we got one spot. But that one spot, may mean more in the future. So, and that kind of is a presence of staying in and keeping the pressure on yourself, because the pressure is not always going to be on you, especially as a pit crew member.
Jacob Prawl talking right there. The front tire changer for the 17, Nick Patterson, is the Jackman. Nick, I'm curious from your perspective as a pit crew guy, when there is a long, when it's green for a long time, and I don't know how many people realize this from your perspective, standing there at the pits, your view of the race is not great, especially depending on what track you're at. So you're not, I could imagine it gets a little boring, to be honest, where you're kind of sitting there and the cars are going around, and it can get a little monotonous if you're not fully engaged, especially not on a short track where you can't see what's going on. How do you stay mentally prepared? How do you stay mentally engaged when you are the put me in coach, part of the aspect of the race team?
Yes, and it's cool because it's cool that you asked that question, because I think that I view it as a two-part answer, because there's one part of it that you have to be able to shut off that high level of focus after a stop, because you can't sustain that level the entire race. Like, it's not sustainable to stay sharp and stay that focused as you are during the pit stop. So it's important to be able to flip that switch on and then shut that switch off and just relax. If something happened, positive or negative, just kind of flush it and get ready to go and lock in for the next stop. And then on the staying focused side of things, there's a portion that Cameron taught me early on in my career where it's my job and everybody's job, but specifically my job, to know where we're running, who's around us, and where the cars in front of and behind us are pitting and where they are on lap time and all that, so that whenever we do come down, if we were to come down and the cycle starts early or there's a surprise caution, that I know where those cars are pitting so that I can relay to our guys, hey, we're going to stop him short here. Hey, we're going to stop him a little long. Hey, we got this car coming around us, so just know that when we're going out there, and especially to my carrier who's the furthest out on pit road, and he's an amazing carrier, and I wouldn't want anything to happen to him because he's a big part of our success, but I have to let him know, hey, we got a car coming around us, so maybe tuck in tight to me and I'll give you a little extra room. And there's certain cars on pit road that we know give us less room than others, so that's something else you kind of tune into as well. And other cars are very generous with that space. And so that focus is, I view it as kind of like a low intensity cardio type focus, where it's kind of the walking, just getting your walk in. But then the stop itself is more like getting your hill sprints, where you got to lock in, the form's got to be good. You want to execute that pit stop to the best of your ability, and then shut that focus off.
We are talking about the wonderful world of the pit crew and how it functions within the world of a NASCAR team. It really is a fascinating kind of sub-world to everything we talk about with the drivers and the crew chiefs, and it's really kind of amazing, all these guys and their backgrounds. Jacob, I'm curious from your perspective about the weather aspect for pit crew guys. There are times where throughout the summer it gets hot as hell. There's times where it's just really, really rainy. I was going to use some other language, but I chose not to. But really rainy. From a weather perspective, how much does that impact how you do your job?
I would say everything. It's first of all how you feel in any performative sport, and if you go out there and it's a cool 60 degrees and you got a nice little breeze going across your face, and maybe the sun's not even shining that much. Yeah, you're ready to go. And that's much different than 100 degrees, dripping sweat in the fire suit. I was humbled very quickly when I started my career on how hot you actually got in that fire suit, especially just there's not many spots to hide on pit road under the shade. Everyone's, bumping shoulders just to find that little bit of shade. So, how you feel is, look good, feel good, play good.
Yeah.
All right, boys. All-Star race is coming up. We're coming off Kansas, a top 10 finish. Things were all good this past weekend. We were kind of waiting, hoping for a moment where we could break through and go for the win. It didn't happen, but, top 10 still a good spot, and Chris has had a good season so far to put himself in playoff position. With that said, your thoughts on the All-Star race coming up, both of you. What are your feelings, and what is the importance of this weekend, Nick?
It's one of those times where you get to see teams go head to head, and all eyes, not only from the fans but from the other teams, are on one team at a time. And it's a cool thing to watch, because if you look at the past All-Star races, there have been teams that are incredibly solid on pit road week in and week out that have minor mistakes or major mistakes. And I think that a large part of that is that you have a lot of eyes on you. All your companions and your peers are watching, and then on top of that, there's this pressure to go out and hit a home run. And when you're swinging for the fence, there's always the chance of having those minor mistakes that end up being bigger compounded mistakes. And so I love it. I think it's a great intense environment, and I think that the guys that are on our team thrive on that, and I've seen that, race in, race out this year. So I'm personally excited about it.
Jacob, it's going to be fun. Certainly, it's a little bit different how we qualify this weekend for the All-Star Heats, the Pit Crew Challenge. From that perspective, what are you looking forward to?
Nick's right. I don't want to be a pessimist here, but
here we go.
The unfortunate part about the pit stop challenge is that the car is hard to pit. I don't know. Maybe that's just me being too much about that topic, but yeah, I wish it was, even though it is highlighted and it's nice for us to get the highlight, you always want a little more.
Yeah, no,
I think you're making sense, though.
Yeah.
I think you are making a lot of sense when it comes to that. Nick, I know you wanted to add something.
Well, I agree. That was one thing we've talked about, is like it would make more sense to have a pit crew challenge in a Darlington scenario, because the surface also matters a lot, and the North Wilkesboro pit road is pretty slick. If you've seen guys that are running around the car over the past couple of years we've done it there, we've had guys fall because it's just slick. So it's like a Martinsville surface with a similar Martinsville setup, which is not a fast pit stop setup. So it would be ideal, to Jacob's point, to have it at a Darlington where the surface is really grippy for running around.
Charlotte.
Mm-hmm. And then the car's set up to pit fast. Like, you want to see those fast, nearing 7-second stops. And I think that would make it way more interesting, yeah.
Well, hopefully we can tweak it down the line. I think you guys make a lot of valid points, especially when you talk about like the 10-second being the fastest. That's not it's not what you guys are doing. What are you even trying to find out when you do that? I'm with Jacob. I don't think it makes a lot of sense. And somebody who thought that up certainly, I don't know, maybe had too many bourbons that night. But great to have you both. Good luck this weekend. Also, good luck down the road on the home track as we're getting closer to the Coke race and the holiday. But thanks to both of you, and have a great All-Star race. Thanks so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Tune in to our 10-second pit stop. No.
Oh, I will be. Trust me. I'll be all over that. Jacob Prohl, the front tire changer, and Nick Patterson, Jackman, for the number 17, which this week's got a really cool wrap. It's the Kroger Ford Mustang, which will feature Band-Aid, Tylenol, and Neutrogena brands. Guys, great to have you. We'll come back, and we'll talk to a couple of other pit crew members. This time, we move away from the 17. We'll focus on the 6 and the 60. We'll do that next right here on Backstretch Banter. We're back on Backstretch Banter, Sirius XM NASCAR 90. Backstretch Banter with RFK Racing. We got two more pit crew guys with us today. It is Pit Crew Day on Backstretch as we are celebrating the guys that work their butt off. And I'll tell you what, it really is incredible how much preparation goes into such a fast thing that happens during the race, and it's so important. But we'll continue to focus on it. Cody Osborne, our guest now, who is the fueler for Brett Keselowski and the number 6 Ford Mustang. We also have Kyle Fox, front tire changer for the number 60. Gentlemen, it is great to have you on. Certainly, this is a fun day. We get to focus on the pit crews, and what's amazing is how different everybody's story is. We had an Ivy League football player on a minute ago and a guy that was, out of college just trying to find a way in this world. So I'm curious your stories. And Cody, I will start with you as a guy who found his way to being a fuel guy for Brad. How did you find your way into a NASCAR pit crew? What's your unique journey?
It was a good journey. I started off playing football for Notre Dame College D2 school up in Cleveland, Ohio. I ended up following my head coach down here to Lenore Rhine, Hickory. I don't know if you're familiar, but it's about an hour away from here, and ended up graduating there. And some of the coaches reached out, and I came in for a tryout, and basically that was history. So I planned on moving back to Ohio, and that never kind of worked out. So I'm down here and ended up with RFK Racing, and I've absolutely loved it ever since.
So you liked your coach so much that you transferred with him at Division II, which is a pretty common thing we see with NIL and portal at the Division I level, but you did it at the D2 level.
Yeah.
You go to a school in a different state in North Carolina, and what did you see, a flyer? I mean, how did you know that they were looking for somebody to train to be a pit crew guy?
So I guess I was very fortunate. So some of our training staff actually, our coaches now reached out to them and said, hey, do you have any guys that were possibly looking for this opportunity to come work for us or try out at least? And Scott Bowen and Les knew a couple of people on our staff at LR, and I came down here, and it's been history ever since.
So a football player that found his way from D2 to RFK Racing. Now, Kyle, you got a different story, and you are the front tire changer for the number 60. You were a strength coach. I mean, I don't know if you worked in football or what your background is, but you found your way to RFK, and now you're working on a pit crew. I mean, this is a unique journey. How would you describe it?
Honestly, nothing short of just unique, and kind of just things came to chance, to be honest. I was at the University of Indianapolis. I didn't play any collegiate sports while I was in college. Just stayed in shape, was studying exercise science, just, trying to get into the strength coach world. I knew I kind of wanted to be within athletics and sports. And ended up working with the University of Indianapolis and their strength and conditioning staff. Kind of spent a lot of time with all of their sports there. I mean, we're talking all their track and field stuff, all their long distance runners, their tennis, their swim and dive, football, basketball, both men's and women's lacrosse, all that stuff. I mean, I spent time with almost every single probably sport team that came through there. And while I was doing that, I was studying for my master's degree in exercise science, was coming to the tail end of that and was looking for jobs, happened to stumble across a assistant strength and conditioning job at RFK Racing on LinkedIn, of all places. LinkedIn is kind of notorious for not being the best place to apply for jobs, and happened to stumble across it and find that and said, you know what, might as well apply. Our professors always told us if you're going to apply for a strength conditioning job, make sure you meet the minimum requirements and just go for it if you're interested. So I did. Went through the round of interviews. Les, Scott, they decided to give me an opportunity to come out here. So I started that in September of 22. Probably about a year later, I decided, I kind of need to try to see and what this type of stuff feels like for these guys so I can train them. And so I kind of went out there and started messing around with the guns and stuff like that just to see what it felt like, what they physically had to do. Kind of picked it up at least a little quick. They decided to give me a chance to let me try to practice it more and more often. Turns out I picked it up quick enough to the point where now I'm on the 60 car as a front changer. I was on the 60 last year as well for the races that they ran. I did Daytona with the I was on the rears for that. And then the other races that I ran last year were on the fronts. So I kind of came up to just dumb luck that I just happened to stumble across it on LinkedIn, and it put me into this situation where I can kind of make a name for myself on pit road, but also kind of help train these guys in the same process and work with them all the time too.
So the point is, you never know where the opportunity is going to come, and you might just be on the internet and you're looking around and, that looks like a good job, I'll apply. And then all of a sudden it becomes your life, and then your life takes a turn and you're changing tires during a NASCAR race. And it's crazy. I mean, it really is. It's absolutely crazy. But it's really damn cool. And how many of us would love to be in your position right now? I can't even imagine it. Like, for me, I know that I don't have the chops to do it, but I think it's really cool for the ones that do. And you're doing it right now with a group of guys with the number 60 team that are really likable and have a lot to prove, and I think are doing that every single week. Cody, for you, with the number 6 team, do you believe, like I do, that I don't know what the karma gods are doing to you guys right now, but something beautiful has to be coming down the road soon. It has to be, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's been hard. You don't want to say it hasn't been hard the way our seasons went, because like who could have predicted the week in and week out of just different things that have gone wrong for us. But you just got to keep thinking like that's just going to make the next, win, whatever it is, like that much better. And I can't wait for that day. And I know it's coming soon. Obviously, last weekend at Kansas, we shined and had a bad luck, I guess, again, but it's just going to make it that much better for when we do get that win.
It's really crazy. I sit here from my perspective watching it on TV, and it's just every time it happens, you're just like, come on.
Yeah.
Not again. Like, I can't even imagine what you're thinking, because you're feeling things are going well. Yeah. We're having a good race, and then all of a sudden, it's like there's a ghost that comes and messes up the car or something. I don't know.
It's a never-ending black cloud. Yes. It's the longest black cloud I've ever seen.
But when it lifts, I hope there's like a triple rainbow. You know what I mean?
It's got to be. Rainbow. It's got to be. Yeah.
Has to be. I'm convinced of it that something beautiful is going to happen. Kyle, your first time out was Daytona last year for Stage 60. That first race, when you're out there and you got to do it and you're under, that kind of spotlight, what was that like for you to get the first one in your, under your belt compared to now when I guess the All-Star race is coming up, but do you feel more comfortable than you did that first time in Daytona?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that first time in Daytona, you've been practicing for so long at that point. You've been getting ready. We kind of knew a few months beforehand that we were going to be doing it. So it's a lot of race-type scenarios were thrown into that. So we had a lot of prep work behind it, but there was absolutely a ton of nerves. Like I said, I didn't play any collegiate sports. Obviously, I didn't do anything professionally either, so I didn't know what a big crowd was. I didn't know what it was going to be like setting up next to all these other people who have done this before and have been doing this for years. And I think in those moments, you just have to find a way to collect yourself as much as you can and fall back on the training that you've been doing and prepping on. Which we had been doing for months at that point. Still absolutely nervous. You go to step up on the wall. I still get a little bit nervous and anxious stepping up on the wall now, but I think that's a good thing. I would say that the first time going up there at Daytona was such a nervous wreck of like, golly, like I got to make sure I go out there and do this right, because you don't know how many opportunities you're going to get, especially knowing that we were on a part-time car. We didn't know how many races we were going to run. You got to go out there and you got to make it count. And that's not to say that we had a perfect day or anything like that. We didn't. Everybody makes mistakes, but I think it was a good learning experience of how to deal with those nerves and work with that first time jitters and get that out of the way. I felt like once I did the first pit stop, where I actually did go change a tire, I felt like I was a lot more comfortable from that point forward. Nerves are absolutely still there. They're always going to be there. They're still there today, but the confidence when you do it right one time, just it instantly brings you up to the point where you feel a lot more comfortable doing it time in and time out. So I think that definitely helped doing it on such a grand stage too. I mean, it's the Daytona 500. I mean, that's the biggest stage there's going to be in terms of NASCAR. So I mean, that's as big as it gets.
I would imagine any pro athlete would say a similar thing, about the first time they got on that stage and looked around and they just needed to go through a rep and then, okay, now it's about the job and the training. But to get to that point, it's a whole new world, especially when you haven't been in that group of people and literally not only just from a crowd perspective, but like you said, everybody around you on pit road. Let's take a break. We'll come back. We'll finish up with these two gentlemen as we get ready for All-Star Weekend. It is Backstretch Banter. I am Chris Childers on NASCAR Radio, Sirius XM, Channel 90. We're back on Backstretch Banter with RFK Racing, Sirius XM, NASCAR, Channel 90. I'm Chris Childers. We got Pit Crew Day happening as we speak. Been a lot of fun. Cody Osborne, Kyle Fox with us right now. One with the 6 putting in fuel for that Ford Mustang, and the other changing the front tire for the number 60. Cody Osborne, Kyle Fox, our guests here on the program. The Pit Crew Challenge is this weekend. Cody, a chance for your guys to shine. I know it's a unique weekend, certainly gets a little spotlight on you guys. What does this competition mean to all the members of the number 6 Pit Crew, sir?
I think it means the utmost because it gives you a chance to go out there and show what we're capable to do, coming from week in, week out, and just being able to compete, like even with our fellow, 60 and 17, and it gives us a little bit of extra drive, to go out there and compete with those guys. And I know we have one of the best crews on pit road, and I'll stand by that till the day I die, and we have a good chance to go out there and get a win for the 6 crew.
Well, you're looking at your buddy over here with admiration, but you did mention the competition. So how much competition is there now? And there's 3 pit crews that are, full-time with this team as opposed to last year.
Yeah.
There was 2, which might have even made it more hyper-competitive. But how much competition is there amongst you guys? Although I'm sure it has to be friendly, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think it's just competition is getting better and better every year. The pit stops are getting faster and faster every year. So you're talking, it was maybe half a second here a couple years ago. Now we're down to tenths, hundredths, and it's whatever the slightest bit we can shave off of a pit stop to beat the next guy. We're going to try to figure that out. And that's what is great about North Wilkesboro. We get to go show what we've been trying to shave off, and hopefully it pans out. Everything works out for us.
Kyle, for you, man, a time to shine for this team. The number 60 has had a hell of a year. I think it's been one of the great stories in NASCAR. The first half of the season, this team gets put together and has had great success, and kind of a ragtag group, really, in some respects. When you look at the crew chief, and we've documented it here on the show. So this is a big chance for the 60 to kind of strut its stuff. With that said, what's been the conversation leading up to the Pit Crew Challenge?
Yeah, for us, we've had, I think, as a pit crew, a pretty good year. Not perfect, once again, but Derek's always had our backs on that side of things. He's let us know that we're his guys, which has been a huge, huge help, knowing that we have his confidence behind us as well. Going into this Pit Crew Challenge, I think we really want that opportunity to show that we are potentially one of the best crews out there, or the best, just like what Cody just mentioned. I think all of our pit crews here probably all feel that they can be the best pit crew on pit road every single weekend. So going to North Wilkesboro and getting that opportunity to go out there against all these other teams, not just ourselves, and show what we can do, has been a huge point of conversation. Obviously, it's a different style of track, different style of deal. You only get one pit stop, and that's it. There's, you get that one opportunity to go shine. So it is, you got to make it count in that moment. So a lot of that conversation's really been focused around not so much pushing for the maximum speed ever, but really just being really clean during the pit stop. If a lot of the guys, if you go look at the North Wilkesboro last year, there was a lot of mistakes last year with a lot of those pit crews. So we've really talked a lot about trying to keep it as clean as possible while still trying to find that upper tier of speed, of course. But if we can keep it clean, we think we're going to have a really good shot. So a lot of our conversations have been about that and how that car setup is going to look like for it.
We got a few minutes left, and I'm curious from your perspective as we shine a light on the pit crew today. A clean pit stop, you got different guys working in harmony, and it happened so damn fast. But how does it feel when the car pulls off a pit road and you did your job and you did it well? Do you know immediately? Like, is it one of those things you celebrate? Do you have time to celebrate, considering the fact that the next pit stop won't happen for a while? Kyle, for you, what does the clean pit stop feel like for you and the rest of the guys?
It's kind of a rush of excitement. In the moment, you don't necessarily know it's going that well. Like, you don't necessarily lose your concept of time, but I think for me personally, and I think for most of these guys, it kind of hits you right when you finish. We've had a couple times this year, and I know our social teams have posted a couple of the clips where we showed a little excitement after a pit stop. And it's those exact moments where I would say, like, when I'm actually doing it, I actually don't even notice how fast we're going. I feel like it's slow until for whatever reason, right when that car gets dropped and he's pulling off, then all of a sudden it hits you and you're like, okay, wait a minute, we might have just put one down there. We might have just ran a really good rep. And I'd say absolutely we have time to celebrate. I would say we don't celebrate it too long necessarily. We right when that car pulls off, we're kind of fist pumping, saying whatever we say at the moment, celebrating a brief bit, and then we put our gear back over the wall. We go check the time because we're curious to know what we ran. And then there might be a little bit of celebration after we see that time. But I wouldn't say we're necessarily looking at it for super long, more than maybe a couple minutes after the stop's over. By the time it goes back green, we're usually kind of hanging out, just ready to watch, hopefully watch our driver drive through the field.
It's a fun world, the world of the pit crew, and it's fast-paced, and you got a little time to shine. You better take advantage of it, and then it's on to the next one. And hopefully they all come together enough during the course of a race to put you in a position to have success. Cody, we mentioned your work with the number 6 team. I thought it was wild as I was looking at your bio that you were a rodeo dude and you sell candles. So what are you up to off the racetrack, buddy? What's going on?
It's kind of a unique thing, I guess. When I was growing up, I always was in the rodeo world. I was in competition, cowboy mounted shooting, actually.
Really?
So I traveled throughout the country with that, and I've always been competing at a high level, everywhere I went, whether it was rodeo, football, and now it's in NASCAR. So I'm blessed to keep that rolling, And as for the candle stuff, we get a lot of time outside of racing during the weekdays. Yeah. So, who are you if you aren't making the most of it, right? So make a couple extra bucks here and there. I'm always trying to make a dime. But it's a Bear Sense Candle Company. It's a great little plug.
Shameless plug.
Well, how'd you get into it? I'm curious. Like how candles for you?
Yeah, real close to my grandma, and she's always been a big candle person. I just thought it was a great low market, low entry get into, and I feel like there's some money to be made if you can make a good one.
I love that. As a candle fan, I think that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah,
so
I got to retire on something.
A rodeo man to a candle maker and a fuel changer, an international man of mystery right there. It's Cody Osborne.
A little bit of everything.
Many interests and many talents. No question about that. Kyle, my last question for you is about the work that you do as a strength coach and what it's like to get to know everybody from that perspective in the weight room. Does it give you a different perspective than maybe others have of who's on this team and, maybe there's some of their capabilities?
Yeah, absolutely. Like for example, a lot of times, like Cody here, for example, when he goes out to practice and he's practicing fueling, sometimes that, like, depending on the track and depending on how important the fuel is, Daytona, it's going to be a lot more emphasized on making sure we're doing a great job with the fuel just because of the nature of the race. But some weeks you might not necessarily have to do the best job plugging the can in. So it's interesting to see guys like Cody, for example, work out in the weight room and push super hard and always look to, find a little bit of extra gain. And then sometimes see him out at practice, and it's not the biggest.
I do my best job every weekend, Kyle.
Is that right? But no, I think it does give me a unique perspective, especially with the age range of guys. Right now we've got a pretty much age range of about 21 to, what is it, 47?
I would say 40. Yeah,
Coleman's,
really?
Coleman's our oldest guy. Yeah, so 21 to 47 is a big age range.
Sure.
So it gives me a unique perspective on where guys are at in their careers, especially. And some of these guys who have been doing it for so long at this point kind of know what they need. They know they don't need to push super, super hard. They know what they want to feel like going into the weekend and how they want to maybe take it a little lighter on a Thursday or something like that here and there to make sure that they're recovered. Whereas some of your younger guys who haven't been doing it for super, super long are loving to push all the time, and they're constantly working hard, lifting weights really heavy, and they're fine on the weekends too. So getting that perspective of these guys and kind of learning the way that these guys go about each training session is definitely been interesting, especially with the age range and the veterancy that we have across the three teams.
Pretty fascinating and really cool. I think how it all works together. Cody Osborne and Kyle Fox, great to have them. Also, thanks to Nick Patterson and Jacob Prawl for joining us on the program earlier. This weekend, it's the All-Star Race. You can see Boston Common Golf on the 60. I'm a little partial to that. As a Rory fan, I think it's pretty cool to see that. The number 17 Kroger, and for number 6, the Salomon Plumbing Ford Mustang. Going to be an awesome weekend at the All-Star Race. Gentlemen, good luck to you. And that'll wrap it up here on Backstretch Banter with RFK Racing. I am Chris Childers, and thank you for listening on SiriusXM NASCAR Channel 90.